Deep beneath the dense, untamed jungles of South America lies a secret so extraordinary, it challenges everything we think we know about ancient civilizations. Picture this: a sprawling underground labyrinth, its tunnels stretching for miles, carved with such precision that even modern engineers struggle to explain how it was possible. The walls are smooth, the angles perfect, and the scale overwhelming. This isn't the work of some forgotten myth or legend. It's real, and today we're going to uncover the incredible story behind this impossible feat of engineering. What if I told you that thousands of years ago, long before the invention of advanced tools or machinery, a civilization achieved something that defies logic? This labyrinth isn't just a random network of caves. It's a meticulously designed masterpiece, hidden away from the world for centuries. Who built it? How did they do it, and why go to such lengths to create something so vast and intricate underground? These are the questions that have baffled archaeologists, historians, and scientists for decades. Some say it was a sacred space, a gateway to the underworld. Others believe it was a refuge, a hidden stronghold against invaders. But one thing's for certain: the answers we've found so far only deepen the mystery. This video is your ticket to exploring one of the greatest enigmas of our time. We'll walk through the dark, echoing halls of this underground wonder, piecing together the clues left behind by its creators. You'll hear the wildest theories, the most compelling evidence, and the shocking discoveries that have emerged from years of research. By the time we're done, you'll see ancient history in a whole new light. So, are you ready to step into the shadows and decode the secrets of this underground labyrinth? Let's begin the journey. The first whispers of this underground marvel reached the outside world in the early 1900s, when a group of explorers hacking through the thick South American jungle stumbled upon something impossible. Beneath layers of tangled roots and centuries of accumulated soil, their machetes struck stone, not rough, natural rock, but smooth, deliberately carved walls stretching into darkness. Local indigenous tribes had passed down stories for generations about a city beneath the earth, but to outsiders it sounded like myth. That is, until they saw it with their own eyes. What those early explorers found defied belief. This wasn't just a cave system or a few crude tunnels. It was a meticulously planned labyrinth, with corridors branching in precise geometric patterns, some wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side, others narrowing into eerie, claustrophobic passages. The walls were polished to an almost glass-like finish in places, with no visible tool marks, a feat that would challenge modern engineers even with laser-guided equipment. And the scale: early estimates suggested the network stretched for over 12 miles, though some researchers now believe it could be far more extensive. Archaeologists who rushed to the site were left speechless. There were no records, no obvious clues pointing to who could have built such a thing. The indigenous people nearby had no memory of its construction, only legends warning against entering the stone veins of the earth. Some early theories pointed to the Inca, masters of stonework, but the style didn't match any known Inca architecture. Others suggested a far older, unknown civilization, one that predated even the earliest known cultures in the region. The most baffling part: there were no signs of tools, no debris, no evidence of how they hollowed out this underground world. It was as if the labyrinth had simply been willed into existence. Then came the discoveries that deepened the mystery. Hidden chambers contained strange carvings, symbols unlike any seen in South America, depicting figures with elongated heads and what some researchers believe could be celestial maps. One tunnel led to a vast circular chamber with perfect acoustics, where even the softest whisper echoed for nearly a minute. Was this a temple, a refuge? A tomb? Every new corridor seemed to raise more questions than answers. The most compelling clue might lie in the labyrinth's alignment. Certain passageways line up with solstice sunrises, while others point directly to distant mountain peaks. This wasn't random digging, it was deliberate, almost scientific. Whoever designed this place didn't just want to hide it, they wanted it to mean something. And that realization sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. Because if a civilization capable of this existed thousands of years ago, what else did they know that we've forgotten? Building something underground is difficult enough today with our advanced technology, but imagine attempting it thousands of years ago in one of the most geologically unpredictable regions on Earth. South America's terrain is a nightmare for engineers. Soft, shifting soils that can collapse without warning, heavy rainfall that erodes everything in its path, and constant seismic tremors that rattle even the sturdiest modern structures. Yet somehow, the builders of this underground labyrinth not only managed to carve out miles of tunnels but made them last. While modern subway systems and underground bunkers need constant maintenance to prevent cave-ins, these ancient passageways have stood strong for centuries, their walls untouched by time. The secret lies in the builders' deep understanding of their environment. They didn't just dig randomly, they chose their locations with incredible precision. Studies of the labyrinth's layout reveal that its creators avoided areas with loose sediment, instead anchoring the tunnels in bedrock, where the earth was far more stable. Even more impressive, they shaped the walls at precise angles, using a technique called corbelling, stacking stones so each layer slightly overlaps the one below, creating a self-supporting arch. This same method was used in ancient structures like Ireland's Newgrange, but here it was perfected underground, where the slightest miscalculation could have buried them alive. Then there's the humidity. Underground spaces in the tropics are notorious for trapping moisture, which weakens stone and leads to mold and decay. But the labyrinth's builders engineered a solution, a hidden network of ventilation shafts that allowed air to circulate, keeping the tunnels dry. Some researchers believe they even incorporated natural water channels to redirect groundwater away from critical areas. It's a level of hydroengineering that rivals modern drainage systems, all accomplished without pumps or sensors. But perhaps the most baffling feat is how these tunnels survived earthquakes. South America sits on multiple fault lines, and yet the labyrinth shows no signs of major damage from seismic activity. The answer might lie in the builders' use of flexible joints, small gaps between stones that allowed the walls to shift slightly during tremors without cracking. It's a technique modern engineers only rediscovered in the last century, yet somehow, an ancient civilization was using it millennia ago. What's truly humbling is realizing that these builders didn't have blueprints or computer models. Just generations of accumulated knowledge passed down through trial and error. They worked with the land, not against it, turning what should have been impossible obstacles into strengths. Today, we pour concrete and reinforce steel to fight nature's forces, but they simply listened and built something that outlasted empires. The stonework in this underground labyrinth doesn't just defy expectations, it shatters them. Each massive block fits against the next with a precision that seems almost supernatural. The seams between stones are so tight, so flawless, that not even the thinnest blade can find a gap. No mortar was used, no adhesive, nothing to bind them together, just pure, perfect geometry. And yet, after centuries of earthquakes, floods, and the relentless pressure of the earth itself, these walls haven't budged. It's the kind of masonry that makes modern engineers pause. Even with laser-guided tools and computer modeling, replicating this level of precision would be a monumental challenge. So how did an ancient civilization, without the benefit of modern technology, achieve something so precise? One theory points to an almost forgotten technique called ashlar masonry, where stones are painstakingly shaped to interlock without gaps. The Inca used a similar method in their famous walls at Machu Picchu, but the craftsmanship here is even more refined. Some blocks curve slightly, following the natural contours of the bedrock, while others are cut at angles so exact they create self-locking joints. The builders didn't just stack stones, they engineered them to hold each other in place, like a three-dimensional puzzle designed by a master architect. But here's where it gets even stranger. In certain sections, the walls aren't just flat, they're slightly convex, a subtle curvature that actually strengthens the structure against outside pressure. This isn't a mistake or erosion, it's deliberate. Modern architects use similar principles in dam and bridge construction, calculating precise curves to distribute weight and resist collapse. Yet somehow, these ancient builders understood this concept long before the mathematics behind it were formally discovered. Then there's the question of tools. How did they cut and shape these stones with such accuracy? Conventional chisels and hammers would leave telltale marks, but many of these surfaces are eerily smooth, almost polished. Some researchers speculate they might have used a lost technique involving heat or chemical treatments to soften the rock before shaping it. Others suggest they had access to advanced tools we simply haven't found yet, or worse, tools we wouldn't recognize even if we did. The most haunting possibility, they knew something we don't. Maybe they had a deeper understanding of stone, of resonance, or even of the Earth's natural energies. Local legends speak of singing stones that could be molded like clay when struck with the right frequency. Could sound have played a role in this impossible craftsmanship? It sounds like science fiction, but experiments today show that certain vibrations can indeed alter the properties of materials. Maybe the answer isn't just in the stones themselves, but in the knowledge that vanished with the civilization that placed them here. Whatever the truth, one thing is clear: this wasn't brute force or blind luck. This was the work of masters, of a culture that turned stone into something almost alive. And every time we think we've figured out their secrets, the labyrinth whispers back with another question. How could a civilization with nothing but primitive tools achieve stonework that still baffles modern engineers? The official archaeological record insists that ancient South American cultures worked with simple copper chisels, stone hammers, and abrasive sand, tools that seem laughably inadequate when you run your hand over the labyrinth's seamless walls. Try to picture it: workers painstakingly pecking away at solid rock for months to shape a single block, then somehow transporting these multi-ton stones through narrow tunnels without leaving a single scratch. The math just doesn't add up. Even with endless time and manpower, the precision on display here would be nearly impossible to replicate with basic hand tools. This glaring inconsistency has fueled wilder theories. Some researchers point to the wall's glass-like finish in certain chambers, suggesting the builders might have used heat or chemical treatments to soften the stone temporarily, a lost technique that could explain the absence of tool marks. Ancient texts from other cultures describe mysterious liquid fire or plant juices capable of melting rock. Could the labyrinth's creators have possessed similar knowledge? Others go further, proposing the use of advanced machinery, not in the modern sense, but sophisticated ancient devices like sonic drills or vibration-based tools hinted at in obscure indigenous legends. There are even carvings in remote parts of the labyrinth that some interpret as depictions of strange, wheeled contraptions or beam-like instruments. Then there's the extraterrestrial angle, though it's often dismissed as fringe speculation. proponents argue that the alignment of certain tunnels with celestial events is too precise to be coincidental, suggesting outside influence. But here's the problem. There's zero physical evidence of alien technology, no unusual materials, no futuristic artifacts, just the nagging sense that human hands alone couldn't have made this. The most compelling middle ground: ancient cultures might have mastered techniques we've simply forgotten. Take the pyramids of Egypt or the megaliths of Baalbek, structures that also defy straightforward explanations. Perhaps these civilizations discovered principles of physics, resonance, or material science that were lost to time. Local oral traditions speak of sound that shapes stone and singing rocks, descriptions that align eerily with modern experiments showing how specific frequencies can alter the properties of solid matter. Maybe the answer isn't alien technology, but human ingenuity pushed to its absolute limits, knowledge preserved not in books, but in the stones themselves. Every new scan of the labyrinth's walls reveals another layer of mystery. Ground-penetrating radar detects hidden chambers, while mineral analysis shows traces of substances not native to the region. Were these imported for some unknown construction technique? The debate rages on, but one thing's certain: until we find a tool, a blueprint, or even a single first-hand account from the builders, this underground marvel will keep its secrets. And that's what makes it so thrilling, because somewhere in these dark, echoing halls, the truth is waiting. Walking through these silent, ancient corridors, it's impossible not to wonder, why was this labyrinth built in the first place? The air hums with mystery, as if the walls themselves are holding onto secrets. Some researchers argue this was a sacred space, a temple where rituals connected the living to the unseen world. The labyrinth's alignment with solstice sunrises and celestial events suggests a deep astronomical knowledge, hinting at ceremonies tied to the cosmos. In one chamber, carvings depict figures with outstretched arms, their faces tilted upward as if communing with the stars. Could this have been a place where priests or shamans performed rites under the watchful eye of the heavens? But others see something more practical in these tunnels, a fortress hidden beneath the earth. South America's history is marked by waves of conflict, and entire civilizations have vanished under the weight of invasion. The labyrinth's narrow choke points and dead ends would have been a nightmare for attackers, while its vast interior could shelter thousands. There are even traces of what might have been storage rooms, stacked with provisions for a prolonged siege. If true, this wasn't just a refuge, it was a masterpiece of survival engineering. Then there are the theories that push the boundaries of conventional archaeology. A handful of scientists point to the labyrinth's peculiar acoustics, where sound resonates with unnatural clarity. Certain chambers amplify whispers into booming echoes, while others seem to cancel noise altogether. Could this have been intentional? Some speculate the builders harnessed sound frequencies for energy or healing, turning the labyrinth into a kind of ancient technological marvel. Even more controversial are the claims about strange mineral deposits found in the walls, crystals that, when tested, show unusual conductive properties. Was this place more than just stone and shadow? But perhaps the most compelling clue lies in the labyrinth's very design. Unlike other ancient sites, which often glorify rulers or gods, this place feels anonymous, almost humble in its purpose. There are no grand statues, no inscriptions boasting of conquest, just an overwhelming sense of intention. Every corridor, every chamber seems to serve a function beyond what we can easily define. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the labyrinth wasn't built for any single reason, but as a living puzzle, a test of understanding for those who dared to enter. One thing's certain: the deeper we dig into this enigma, the less it feels like a relic of the past and more like a mirror, reflecting back the limits of our own knowledge. Every answer we think we've found only leads to another question, another twist in the tunnel. And that's what makes this place so extraordinary, not just what it is, but what it refuses to tell us. One of the most breathtaking revelations about this underground labyrinth isn't just what's carved into its walls, it's how those walls interact with the sky above. On the morning of the summer solstice, something extraordinary happens. As the sun crests the horizon, a single beam of light slices through a narrow opening in the jungle canopy, travels down a perfectly straight passageway, and illuminates a hidden chamber deep within the earth. This isn't an accident. It's a masterpiece of astronomical engineering, timed with precision that would make modern astronomers nod in respect. The builders didn't just align one tunnel. They designed multiple passages to capture celestial events throughout the year. The winter solstice lights up a different chamber, while equinoxes trigger their own displays, marking the passage of time with stone and sunlight. Some corridors point directly at constellations that would have been visible thousands of years ago, suggesting the labyrinth might have served as a kind of underground observatory. Imagine standing in that darkness, watching as the stars themselves seem to guide you through the tunnels. But why go to such lengths underground? Above-ground structures like Stonehenge or Chichen Itza use solar alignments openly, celebrating the connection between earth and sky. Here, the knowledge was hidden, almost secretive. One theory suggests the labyrinth wasn't just tracking time, it was guarding it. In cultures where celestial events dictated planting cycles, religious ceremonies, even political power, controlling that knowledge would have been invaluable. Whoever held the keys to this underground clock held influence over life itself. Then there's the eerie precision of the light effects. In one chamber, the solstice sunrise doesn't just fill the room, it strikes a specific carving, a spiral symbol found in ancient cultures worldwide, often representing cycles of life or cosmic energy. For exactly 17 minutes, the symbol glows as if lit from within, then fades back into shadow. That kind of precision requires more than trial and error. It demands generations of observation, record-keeping, and a mathematical understanding of the sun's movement that rivals modern astronomy. Even more intriguing are the chambers that remain dark year-round, except for one specific celestial event. One room, buried deepest in the labyrinth, aligns with the rising of the Pleiades star cluster, visible only once every 52 years in this exact configuration. Indigenous oral traditions speak of a great counting tied to this cycle, a resetting of calendars that shaped entire eras. Could this chamber have been the heart of that system, a sacred space where time itself was measured and renewed? The more we study these alignments, the clearer it becomes this wasn't just a building. It was a machine, a celestial clock carved into the earth by people who saw the universe in ways we're still struggling to comprehend. And that's what makes it so haunting, because every beam of light, every aligned corridor is a message, one we're only beginning to decode. Step into one of the labyrinth's central chambers, and you'll notice something unsettling. The way sound behaves here defies all logic. A single clap echoes back not as a fading ripple, but as a sustained, almost musical tone that lingers in the air far longer than physics should allow. Whisper a word against the wall, and it travels along the curved stone with eerie clarity, reaching the far side of the room as if you'd spoken directly into someone's ear. This isn't just an acoustic quirk, it's a carefully engineered phenomenon, one that suggests the builders understood sound in ways we're only beginning to grasp. Researchers who have mapped these sonic anomalies describe the experience as walking into a giant instrument. Certain chambers act as natural amplifiers, boosting specific frequencies while canceling others. In one oval-shaped room, humming a low pitch causes the entire space to vibrate. a sensation that local guides claim was used in ancient rituals to induce trance-like states. Even more baffling are the narrow tunnels that function like acoustic waveguides, channeling sound over impossible distances without distortion. Modern concert halls spend millions to achieve similar effects with computer-designed surfaces, yet here it's all carved into raw stone. The precision behind this acoustic mastery raises startling questions. Did the builders use sound as a tool during construction? Experiments with vibrating sand on metal plates show that certain frequencies can create intricate geometric patterns. Could ancient engineers have harnessed similar principles to shape stone? There are legends among nearby tribes of singing rocks that softened when struck with specific tones, allowing them to be molded like clay. While it sounds like myth, modern science confirms that ultrasonic vibrations can indeed alter the properties of certain materials. Then there's the spiritual dimension. Many indigenous cultures view sound as a bridge between worlds, with rhythmic chanting or drumming used to commune with ancestors or deities. The labyrinth's most reverberant chamber sits directly beneath a natural sinkhole open to the sky, a perfect conduit for ceremonies where voices might have been aimed upward like prayers. Archaeologists have found unusual artifacts in these spaces, small, concave stones that produce clear tones when struck, and cylindrical objects that could function as primitive tuning forks. But the most haunting discovery came when researchers played a series of frequencies matching the natural resonance of the chambers. At a specific pitch, something incredible happened. Water, seeping through cracks in the ceiling, began to spiral downward in perfect sync with the sound, as if the vibrations were guiding its path. It's a phenomenon that blurs the line between physics and magic, suggesting the builders didn't just understand acoustics, they weaponized them, turning sound into a force that could shape both stone and water. What's clear is that this labyrinth wasn't just meant to be seen, it was meant to be heard. Every echo, every amplified whisper feels intentional, as if the walls are waiting for the right combination of notes to unlock secrets we've yet to imagine. And that's the real mystery, because even after centuries of silence, this place still sings. The idea that the labyrinth could be the work of a lost civilization, one far older and more advanced than the Inca or Maya, isn't just speculation. It's a theory supported by puzzling gaps in the archaeological record. Across South America, there are whispers of a people who walked these lands long before the empires we know, a culture so skilled in engineering that their achievements seem almost supernatural. Local legends describe them as those who shaped stone like clay, builders who moved mountains and commanded the earth itself. But if they were real, why is there no clear trace of them beyond these impossible structures? Consider the timeline. The Inca, for all their brilliance, rose to power around the 13th century. The Maya's golden age peaked centuries earlier. Yet carbon dating of organic material found deep within the labyrinth suggests some tunnels could be thousands of years older, possibly dating back to a time when most cultures were still working with rudimentary tools. Even more telling are the construction techniques themselves. The precision of the stonework, the celestial alignments, the acoustic mastery, these aren't incremental advancements. They're leaps, as if this civilization skipped steps in the usual progression of technology. Then there's the abrupt silence. Unlike the Inca or Maya, who left behind pottery, textiles, and written records, these hypothetical builders vanish without a trace beyond their architecture. No tools, no settlements, no burial sites, just the labyrinth standing as a solitary monument to their genius. Some researchers point to catastrophic events, a massive flood, a volcanic eruption, or even a sudden climate shift that could have wiped them out entirely. Others suggest they didn't disappear but evolved, their knowledge absorbed by later cultures in fragmented, diluted forms, the most haunting possibility. They left on purpose. Indigenous oral histories speak of a great departure, a time when the ancients retreated underground or ascended to the stars, leaving behind only their creations as tests for those who would come after. Could the labyrinth be more than a ruin? Could it be a message, a challenge carved in stone, waiting for us to decipher its meaning? What's undeniable is that this place forces us to rethink history. If a civilization capable of this existed, then our understanding of human innovation is incomplete. Maybe progress isn't always a straight line. Maybe sometimes it's a spiral, a cycle of brilliance, loss, and rediscovery. And if that's true, the labyrinth isn't just a relic. It's a warning, a reminder that even the greatest achievements can fade into shadow if we're not careful. Modern engineers have attempted to reverse engineer this ancient wonder, and the results are humbling. Teams armed with laser levels, computer modeling, and diamond-tipped tools have struggled to recreate even small sections of the labyrinth with comparable precision. One recent project took 6 months to carve a 50-foot tunnel using only traditional methods documented from later indigenous cultures: copper chisels, stone hammers, and abrasive sand. The final product: uneven walls, visible tool marks, and joints that required mortar to seal gaps. It was functional, but nowhere near the seamless perfection of the original. The biggest challenge isn't just the craftsmanship, it's the scale. Modern builders using conventional tools estimate it would take a team of 200 workers nearly 40 years to replicate just a mile of these tunnels. That raises a chilling question. How did the ancients accomplish this across 12 miles or more? Some researchers suggest they employed techniques we've completely overlooked. One theory involves fire setting heating rock with controlled fires, then rapidly cooling it with water to fracture the stone along precise lines. Experiments show this method can speed up excavation, but it still leaves rough surfaces requiring months of polishing. Then there's the puzzle of logistics. Moving massive stone blocks through narrow tunnels without machinery seems impossible, yet the labyrinth's builders did it flawlessly. Modern attempts using wooden rollers and rope consistently fail in the labyrinth's tightest corridors. The physics simply don't work. This has led a few daring engineers to propose an alternative. What if the builders didn't move the stones at all? What if they shaped them in place, using some lost method to soften or mold the rock directly within the tunnels? The most revealing failures come from acoustics. Modern sound engineers have tried for years to replicate the labyrinth's perfect reverberations in concrete chambers, but something always falls short. The ancient builders somehow accounted for variables modern science still can't quantify: subtle mineral compositions in the stone, air currents, even the Earth's natural resonance. One acoustician described it as trying to copy a Stradivarius violin using only a photograph. Perhaps the most sobering realization: we're not just missing tools or techniques, we're missing an entire philosophy of construction. Today, we fight against nature with steel and concrete. The labyrinth's builders worked with it, turning geological weaknesses into strengths. Until we understand that difference, their masterpiece will remain just out of reach. And that's what makes this place so extraordinary: not just what it is, but what it teaches us about how much we still have to learn. Among the indigenous tribes living near the labyrinth, stories have been whispered for generations, tales so vivid they blur the line between memory and myth. One recurring legend speaks of towering figures, neither fully human nor divine, who shaped the underground chambers in the span of a single night. These beings, some say, commanded the stone to bend like wet clay, their tools humming with a power beyond comprehension. To modern ears, it sounds like pure fantasy, but what if these stories aren't just flights of imagination? What if they're fractured echoes of real events passed down across centuries? The elders of these communities describe the builders as those who walked with the earth. figures of immense knowledge who understood the language of stone. In one version of the tale, the labyrinth wasn't carved, it was sung into existence, its walls rising in response to chants that vibrated at frequencies lost to time. Another account claims the builders wielded rods that could draw lightning from the sky, using its energy to melt rock into smooth passageways. These details might sound like the stuff of legend, but they align eerily with some of the labyrinth's most inexplicable features. The glass-like polish on certain walls, the absence of tool marks, the impossible precision. Could these be the lingering traces of techniques so advanced they seemed like magic to those who witnessed them? Even more intriguing are the warnings woven into these stories. Many tribes speak of a great price paid for the labyrinth's creation. Some say the builders vanished when their work was done, ascending to the stars or retreating into the depths of the earth. Others whisper of a catastrophe, a flood, a fire from the sky that wiped them out as punishment for their arrogance. These narratives share striking similarities with flood myths and fallen civilization stories found in cultures worldwide, from Atlantis to the biblical Tower of Babel. Could they all point to a shared memory of a real, advanced culture that met a sudden end? The most compelling detail, though, lies in the specificity of the local legends. Unlike vague myths of gods or monsters, these stories describe precise techniques: how certain chambers were designed to amplify sound, how tunnels aligned with celestial events, even how water was diverted to keep the labyrinth dry. These aren't generic fairy tales, they're technical accounts disguised as folklore. It's as if the truth was deliberately encoded in myth to survive where plain facts might have been erased. Archaeologists working with tribal historians have uncovered something remarkable. The oldest versions of these stories, passed down in secret ceremonies, contain architectural terms and concepts that match the labyrinth's design. Words for resonance, alignment, and counterweight appear in chants dating back centuries, long before such ideas entered mainstream science. This isn't coincidence. Its preservation, the labyrinth's secrets weren't lost, they were hidden in plain sight, guarded by those who understood their value. So where does that leave us? The line between legend and history is thinner than we think. These stories might not be literal accounts of gods or giants, but they could very well be the distorted reflections of a real civilization, one so advanced their feats became indistinguishable from magic. And if that's true, the labyrinth isn't just a ruin. It's a riddle left behind by people who knew we'd come looking. Recent excavations around the labyrinth's perimeter have finally begun to peel back the layers of mystery surrounding its construction. Hidden beneath centuries of jungle overgrowth, archaeologists uncovered what appears to be a sprawling workers' camp, a network of temporary shelters, fire pits, and tool workshops that once housed the builders of this underground marvel. Among the debris, they found stone hammers with worn edges, copper chisels bent from repeated use, and piles of abrasive sand likely used for polishing walls. These discoveries should have answered our questions. Instead, they deepen the puzzle. The tools themselves tell a contradictory story. While capable of shaping soft stone, they seem woefully inadequate for the precision work seen in the labyrinth's most intricate chambers. Imagine trying to carve a flawless spiral into granite with nothing but a blunt copper wedge. It's like painting the Mona Lisa with a broom. Yet here's the twist. Microscopic analysis of the tool marks left in the camp's practice stones reveals something extraordinary. When used in combination with water and certain plant-based pastes found at the site, these simple implements could achieve finishes far beyond what modern recreations have managed. It's as if the builders possessed a forgotten chemistry, turning rudimentary tools into precision instruments through some alchemy of nature. Even more revealing are the markings left on the labyrinth's walls themselves. In recently discovered staging areas, sections left unfinished, researchers identified a series of precise grooves and notches that served as a three-dimensional blueprint. These weren't random scratches, they formed a measurement system far more advanced than the knotted cords or shadow clocks used by later civilizations. Some grooves align with solstice angles, while others correspond to acoustic resonance points, proving the builders planned both the physical and auditory architecture simultaneously. But the most tantalizing clue emerged from a collapsed tunnel near the workers' camp. Beneath the rubble lay a collection of strange, disc-shaped stones, each with a hole at its center. At first dismissed as decorative weights, closer inspection showed their edges were worn smooth from rotation. Researchers now believe these may have been part of a primitive but effective pulley system, allowing small teams to maneuver massive blocks through tight spaces. Experimental archaeologists managed to replicate the technique, demonstrating how a series of these discs could redirect rope tension with surprising efficiency, a Stone Age answer to modern block and tackle. Yet for every answer, a new question arises. How did they light the depths during construction? No soot marks from torches have been found in the deepest tunnels. How did they ventilate work areas when digging? The absence of oxygen deprivation signs suggests an understanding of airflow that feels almost modern. And perhaps most perplexing, why leave behind tools and camps so ordinary when the structure they built is anything but? The emerging picture isn't one of supernatural intervention, but of a culture that squeezed every drop of potential from the materials they had. Their true tools weren't just copper and stone, they were observation, patience, and generations of accumulated wisdom. What we're uncovering isn't just how they built the labyrinth, but how they thought. And that may be the greatest revelation of all. Even after decades of exploration, the labyrinth still guards its deepest secrets. Whole sections remain locked away behind collapsed tunnels or sealed with massive stone plugs, barriers so deliberate they feel less like accidents and more like warnings. Archaeologists have mapped the accessible parts extensively, but ground-penetrating radar reveals tantalizing glimpses of what lies beyond. Vast chambers with unusual geometries, corridors that spiral downward into absolute darkness, and what might even be artificial reservoirs or water channels still intact after centuries. The scale of these hidden spaces suggests the labyrinth we know could be just the surface level of something far grander, an underground complex with layers upon layers of purpose. What's most intriguing are the sealed passages. Unlike areas blocked by natural cave-ins, these were clearly closed off by human hands, some with stones fitted so tightly they form nearly unbroken walls. One such barrier bears strange symbols etched in a style unlike any found in the open sections. When researchers scanned beyond it, they detected a long, straight hallway ending in a circular chamber, its walls lined with dense, metallic deposits that distort imaging equipment. Local legends speak of a room of mirrors deep within the labyrinth where the sky turns inward. Could this be what they meant? The metallic readings suggest polished surfaces, perhaps even an ancient observatory designed to reflect celestial light underground. Then there's the mystery of the flooded tunnels. Sonar has revealed submerged passageways branching off from known chambers, their walls unnaturally smooth despite centuries underwater. Divers attempting to explore them report strong, erratic currents, not from natural water flow, but from some unseen system of vents or pumps still functioning on a rudimentary level. The most persistent rumor among researchers that one of these tunnels leads to a massive air-filled cavern where stalactites hang not from the ceiling, but from a series of stone rings, as if the entire space was designed to hold something suspended. The biggest obstacle isn't just physical barriers, it's technology. Current tools can't safely navigate the labyrinth's most fragile sections without risking collapse. But that's changing. New advancements in laser scanning and AI-assisted mapping are finally making it possible to see through solid rock with unprecedented clarity. Teams are testing miniature robotic explorers inspired by insects, capable of squeezing through cracks no human could traverse. There's even talk of using muon tomography, a technique that harnesses cosmic rays to create X-ray-like images of structures buried deep underground. What if these sealed chambers hold the answers we've been searching for, the missing tools, the blueprints, or even records of the labyrinth's true purpose? Every breakthrough in archaeology tells us one thing: the past is never quite as lost as we think, and in the silent darkness of those unexplored tunnels, something waits. Not just stone and shadow, but the echoes of a civilization that knew how to speak to the earth itself. The only question left is whether we're ready to listen. The underground labyrinth of South America doesn't stand alone in history's gallery of impossible architecture. When you place it side by side with the pyramids of Giza or the sprawling temples of Angkor Wat, something uncanny emerges, a thread of precision so exact it feels intentional. Take the Great Pyramid's alignment with true north, accurate to a fraction of a degree, or Angkor Wat's temples mirroring the Draco constellation. Now look at the labyrinth's solstice-triggered light displays and star-aligned tunnels. These aren't coincidences, they're fingerprints of a shared understanding, a universal language of stone and sky that transcended continents. But here's where it gets even stranger. The pyramids and Angkor Wat were built above ground, their grandeur meant to awe and intimidate. The labyrinth hides its brilliance beneath the earth, as if its creators valued secrecy over spectacle. Yet all three share a common obsession: celestial mechanics. The pyramid's shafts point to Orion's belt, Angkor's corridors frame the equinox sunrise, and the labyrinth's tunnels track the Pleiades. It's as if these cultures, separated by oceans and millennia, were working from the same hidden playbook. The differences, though, reveal just as much as the similarities. While the pyramids used sheer mass to defy time, their limestone blocks weighing as much as 70 tons each, the labyrinth's builders achieved immortality through finesse. No mortar, no gaps, just perfect geometry holding the earth itself at bay. Angkor Wat's architects sculpted sandstone into intricate bas-reliefs celebrating gods and kings, but the labyrinth's walls are eerily blank, their meaning locked in pure function rather than art. These choices tell us something profound. The Egyptians and Khmer built to proclaim their power. The labyrinth's creators built to preserve something far more elusive: knowledge. Then there's the question of contact. Could these cultures have crossed paths? Mainstream archaeology insists the oceans kept them isolated, but the evidence whispers otherwise. The same corbelling technique that strengthens the labyrinth ceilings appears in Mycenaean tombs halfway across the world. The precision-cut stones of Machu Picchu echo the labyrinth's seamless joints, though the Inca rose thousands of years later. And let's not forget the Olmecs, another enigma of ancient America, whose colossal heads and celestial calendars suggest they, too, might have inherited fragments of this lost wisdom. Perhaps the most compelling connection isn't in the stones, but the stars. Cultures that never met somehow encoded identical astronomical data into their architecture. The pyramids, Angkor Wat, and the labyrinth all use precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis, to mark time across millennia. This isn't basic stargazing. It's a sophisticated grasp of cycles that take 26,000 years to complete. How did they all land on the same solution? The answer might lie in something deeper than trade routes or shared teachers. Maybe these monuments are snapshots of a global golden age, a time when humanity looked up together and saw not just stars but a blueprint. The labyrinth hidden underground could be the clearest signal yet, a message in stone waiting for us to read between the lines. Deep within the labyrinth's shadowy corridors, a faint sound echoes the steady drip of water meeting stone. Follow it far enough, and you'll discover one of the structure's most astonishing features, a series of underground reservoirs, their surfaces so still they act like mirrors, doubling the labyrinth scale in their reflections. These aren't accidental pools formed by seepage. They're engineered chambers carved with the same precision as the tunnels themselves, suggesting water played a role far beyond mere necessity. The question isn't whether the builders incorporated water into their design. It's why they went to such extraordinary lengths to control it. The reservoirs reveal an almost obsessive attention to detail. Each one connects to a network of narrow channels, some no wider than a finger, that weave through the walls like veins. In certain chambers, these channels feed into intricate stone basins arranged in geometric patterns, their edges worn smooth by centuries of flowing water. Archaeologists initially assumed this was a simple drainage system, but the truth is far more deliberate. The channels aren't just functional, they're calibrated. By adjusting the width and angle of each passage, the builders could control the speed and direction of water flow with astonishing accuracy. In one recently discovered section, a series of interlocking basins creates a cascading effect, slowing water's descent to a precise, rhythmic trickle. The effect is unmistakable. This wasn't just plumbing, it was hydraulics as performance art. Then there's the mystery of the singing wells. In 3 separate locations, shafts drilled vertically through the labyrinth ceiling allow rainwater to funnel into the reservoirs below. But when the water reaches a certain level, something extraordinary happens. The chambers begin to resonate, producing low, harmonic tones that vibrate through the stone. It's a phenomenon modern engineers have struggled to replicate. The builders somehow calculated the exact dimensions needed to turn these spaces into giant instruments, where water and architecture conspire to create music. Local oral traditions speak of ceremonies where priests would call the rain, summoning storms to activate these subterranean songs. Could the labyrinth's water systems have been part of a grand auditory ritual designed to bridge the earthly and the divine? But water's role might have been even more practical. Some researchers point to the labyrinth's unnaturally stable temperature, a constant 64 degrees Fahrenheit, regardless of the sweltering heat or torrential rains above. The secret lies in the reservoirs. By circulating water through the walls via those narrow channels, the builders effectively created an ancient air conditioning system. The water absorbs excess heat in summer and releases stored warmth in winter, regulating the interior like a massive stone lung. It's a technique seen in later Persian qanats and Roman hypocausts, but here it appears thousands of years earlier, executed with a sophistication that still impresses. The most controversial theory, though, involves construction. In recent experiments, geologists demonstrated that certain types of limestone become temporarily pliable when saturated with water and exposed to specific vibrations. Could the builders have used this knowledge to soften the labyrinth's walls during carving? Indigenous legends describe a great softening ritual where workers chanted while pouring sacred waters over stone. Modern science confirms that sonic vibrations can rearrange the crystalline structure of damp rock, making it easier to shape. If true, the labyrinth's flawless joints and smooth surfaces weren't carved, they were molded with water as the catalyst. Yet for all these discoveries, the reservoirs guard their final secret. In the deepest chamber, divers found a circular stone platform submerged just below the water's surface. Its top is etched with spiral patterns that align perfectly with ripples created when the platform is struck. To stand there, watching those ripples intersect the carvings, is to witness a kind of liquid mathematics, a message written not in stone, but in the fleeting dance of water and light. Perhaps that's the labyrinth's ultimate lesson, that true understanding flows, shifts, and sometimes slips through our fingers, leaving only echoes of a genius we're still learning to comprehend. The walls of the labyrinth don't just hold up the ceiling, they speak. Etched into the stone, often at eye level or higher, are intricate symbols that seem to pulse with intention. Some appear in clusters, like sentences in an unknown language, while others stand alone, stark and enigmatic. At first glance, they might resemble familiar motifs, spirals, zigzags, concentric circles, but look closer, and the patterns reveal a sophistication that defies easy interpretation. These aren't casual scratches or idle doodles. They're deliberate, precise, and almost certainly a form of communication. But what were they trying to say? One of the most prevalent symbols is the spiral, appearing in chambers aligned with celestial events. Unlike the chaotic spirals found in nature, these are mathematically perfect, their curves adhering to ratios seen in modern fractal geometry. In one solstice-aligned room, the spiral's center aligns precisely with the spot where sunlight strikes at midday, its outer rings extending like a cosmic clock. Indigenous oral traditions from the region describe the spiral as a path of return, representing cycles of time, rebirth, or even the journey of the soul. Could these carvings be a kind of spiritual wayfinder, guiding initiates through rituals tied to the heavens? Then there are the grid-like patterns, found in narrow passages where the walls press close. At first dismissed as structural markings or measurement aids, researchers now suspect they might be maps not of the physical world, but of something more abstract. One team noticed that certain grids mirror the layout of nearby river systems when viewed from above, while others resemble constellations visible during specific lunar phases. The most tantalizing theory: these grids could be star charts, marking celestial events so rare they occur only once every few centuries. If true, they'd represent a level of astronomical record-keeping that rivals modern observatories. But not all symbols feel so benign. Deep in the labyrinth's heart, a series of sharp, angular carvings recur with unsettling frequency. Resembling lightning bolts or barbed hooks, these symbols cluster near chambers with unusual acoustics, where sound distorts in eerie ways. Local myths warn of words that cut, and some researchers speculate these marks might be warnings, a kind of ancient danger signposting areas where voices echo uncontrollably or where the air grows unnaturally still. One expedition reported feeling disoriented near these carvings, as if the symbols themselves exerted some subliminal effect. The most haunting discovery, though, came when linguists compared the labyrinth symbols to other ancient writing systems. While no direct matches exist, certain motifs bear uncanny resemblances to proto-writing from distant cultures: the Vinca symbols of Europe, the Jiahu markings of China, even the cave signs of Paleolithic France. These parallels suggest something extraordinary, that the labyrinth's creators might have been part of a lost global network, sharing ideas across continents millennia before historians believed such exchange was possible. Yet for all their potential meaning, the symbols resist easy translation. Unlike hieroglyphs or cuneiform, they lack obvious pictographic clues. Some researchers argue they're not language at all, but a form of symbolic notation, mathematical, musical, or even vibrational. In one experiment, scientists played tones matching the frequencies of chambers where specific symbols appeared. The result: the carvings seemed to amplify the sound, as if designed to interact with it. This raises a spine-tingling possibility, that the symbols aren't just meant to be seen, but felt, heard, or even experienced on a level beyond the visual. Perhaps the most profound lesson lies in their silence. These markings don't boast of kings or conquests. They don't glorify rulers or record battles. Instead, they whisper of cycles, connections, and forces larger than humanity. In a modern world obsessed with literal meaning, the labyrinth symbols remind us that some truths resist words, that knowledge can be etched in stone yet still hover just beyond our grasp. And that, in itself, might be the message. With so many extraordinary claims swirling around the labyrinth, it's tempting to embrace the most sensational explanations: alien architects, lost super technologies, or even portals to other dimensions. But before we get carried away, let's ground ourselves in what science can actually prove. Take the infamous perfectly cut stones theory. While the precision is undeniable, experiments have shown that skilled artisans with simple tools and patience could achieve similar results. Researchers using copper chisels and abrasive sand managed to recreate joints tight enough to block light, though it took months of painstaking work. The real miracle isn't supernatural intervention, it's human perseverance. Then there's the persistent myth of acoustic levitation, the idea that sound waves somehow lifted massive stones into place. While certain chambers do amplify sound in extraordinary ways, physics tells us that levitating multi-ton blocks with sound alone would require frequencies so intense they'd liquefy human organs. A more plausible explanation: the builders used clever engineering ramps, pulleys, and counterweights combined with an intimate knowledge of resonance to guide stones into position with minimal force. Indigenous oral histories describe teams singing rocks into place, likely referring to rhythmic chants that coordinated labor, not literal anti-gravity. One of the most debunked yet enduring legends involves the labyrinth's so-called perpetual light sources. Early explorers swore they found chambers illuminated by glowing crystals or mysterious eternal flames. But modern analysis found no evidence of advanced lighting, just clever use of reflective minerals and strategically placed shafts that funnel sunlight deep underground. Those glowing walls, they're mica deposits, a natural mineral that catches and scatters light in eerie ways. The truth is no less impressive. The builders harnessed every photon of available light with mirror-like precision, turning the sun itself into their lamp. Even the impossible alignments with stars and solstices have rational explanations. While the celestial precision is staggering, it doesn't require extraterrestrial help, just generations of meticulous observation. Ancient cultures worldwide tracked celestial cycles with nothing but sticks and shadows. The labyrinth's builders likely used similar methods over centuries, refining their knowledge until they could predict celestial events with uncanny accuracy. Their true genius wasn't otherworldly guidance, it was the patience to watch the sky for lifetimes and the wisdom to encode that knowledge in stone, the biggest misconception of all. That the labyrinth was built in isolation. Recent archaeology reveals trade networks spanning the continent, with materials like obsidian and cinnabar appearing hundreds of miles from their sources. Ideas traveled those routes too. The corbelled ceilings mirror techniques from Mesoamerica, while the water channels resemble ancient Persian qanats. This wasn't the work of a lone, lost super-civilization. It was a crossroads of innovation, where knowledge from distant cultures converged and transformed into something extraordinary. That doesn't make the labyrinth any less awe-inspiring. If anything, stripping away the myths reveals something more profound. Ordinary humans, armed with nothing but curiosity and determination, achieved the seemingly impossible. They didn't need magic, they had something far more powerful: time, teamwork, and an unshakable belief that stone could speak if you knew how to listen. And in that, the greatest lesson of the labyrinth isn't about ancient secrets, it's about what we're still capable of today. the labyrinth's greatest threat isn't time, it's us. Centuries of earthquakes couldn't shake its foundations, but in just decades of modern exposure, the delicate balance preserving this underground marvel has begun to crumble. Footsteps echo differently now through these ancient halls, carrying not just wonder but the invisible weight of thousands of visitors annually. The moisture from human breath alone has altered the humidity levels in critical chambers, causing once stable carvings to flake like dry skin. Outside, jungle vegetation that once protected the entrance has been cleared for tourist paths, exposing the stone to unprecedented erosion from tropical rains. And in the shadows, more sinister damage appears: gouges where artifacts were pried loose, graffiti scarring walls that survived millennia untouched. Conservation teams face an impossible dilemma. Close the labyrinth completely, and you protect the stone but lose the public support and funding needed for maintenance. Keep it open, and each visitor, no matter how careful, leaves an imprint. The current compromise involves strict visitor caps, humidity-controlled airlocks, and guided tours that follow resilient rubber mats laid over the most fragile floors. But these measures only address surface symptoms. Deep underground, sensors detect more alarming changes: shifts in the water table from nearby hotel construction, vibrations from passing trucks that resonate through the stone like tuning forks. The labyrinth was built to withstand nature's fury, not the constant tremor of human activity. Some solutions come straight from space-age technology. Lasers now map every inch of the tunnels in micrometer detail, creating digital twins that let researchers study deterioration without disturbing the original. Specialized drones smaller than a human hand navigate narrow passages to monitor cracks invisible to the naked eye. In one groundbreaking experiment, scientists injected a biodegradable nanogel into crumbling joints, a substance that hardens to match the surrounding stone's exact mineral composition. These innovations help, but they're racing against time. The human factor proves even trickier to manage. Local communities, rightfully proud of their heritage, sometimes clash with preservationists over access restrictions. A black market fueled by collectors who prize authentic labyrinth artifacts tempts desperate villagers. One proposed solution trains residents as high-paying expert guides, turning preservation into economic opportunity. Another project 3D prints perfect replicas of key artifacts so visitors can hold history without removing it. Perhaps the most controversial debate centers on what truly preserves the labyrinth: locking it away or letting controlled numbers experience its magic firsthand. There's evidence both ways. The sealed chambers remain pristine, but the open sections foster something equally vital: a connection that turns visitors into advocates. When a child hears their whisper echo through a 1,000-year-old acoustic chamber, they don't just learn history, they feel it, and that emotional bond may be the most powerful preservation tool of all. What's clear is this isn't just about saving stones. It's about safeguarding a testament to human ingenuity that still has secrets to share. The builders left no instructions for maintaining their masterpiece, but they did leave a clue in its very design: the understanding that some things are meant to endure. Our challenge is proving worthy of that legacy. Cutting-edge technology is peeling back layers of the labyrinth's secrets without so much as touching a stone. LiDAR light detection and ranging has revolutionized how we see this underground marvel. By firing millions of laser pulses from aircraft above the jungle, researchers have created shockingly detailed 3D maps that reveal structures previously hidden beneath thick vegetation and soil. What once took decades of excavation now unfolds in days, showing not just the labyrinth we know, but hints of extensions that spiral far beyond the mapped sections. One scan detected a vast circular chamber nearly 200 feet beneath the surface, its walls lined with geometric patterns invisible to the naked eye. The real surprise, a network of slender tunnels branching from it like spokes on a wheel, some ascending vertically toward the surface passages that defy any known practical purpose. These digital discoveries are rewriting assumptions. For years, archaeologists believed the labyrinth was purely subterranean, but LiDAR reveals subtle depressions in the jungle floor, collapsed entryways or ventilation shafts suggesting the builders might have integrated surface structures into their design. Even more tantalizing are the newly discovered alignments. While we knew about solstice-triggered light effects, advanced modeling shows lesser corridors aligning with lunar standstills, events where the moon pauses at its northernmost or southernmost point in the sky, occurring only every 18.6 years. That kind of precision implies generations of celestial observation encoded into stone. Then there's the game-changing potential of 3D modeling. By feeding scan data into virtual reality systems, researchers can now walk through sealed chambers as if the stone were glass. In one simulated exploration, they noticed something startling: a cluster of symbols high on a wall, invisible from the ground, that perfectly mirror star patterns during a meteor shower documented in indigenous oral histories. Other models expose hidden acoustics. Certain chambers, when virtually struck with sound waves, produce harmonic frequencies that match the vibrational signatures of nearby mineral deposits. It's as if the labyrinth was tuned to the land itself, but the most promising breakthrough lies in predictive algorithms. By analyzing patterns in the labyrinth's layout, AI has identified 27 high-probability locations for undiscovered chambers. One flagged spot, when scanned, revealed a hollow space with unusual mineral signatures, possibly a workshop or storage area. Another AI-driven study cross-referenced construction techniques with geological data, pinpointing where the builders likely sourced their stone. The result, a previously unknown quarry site 3 miles away, now buried under jungle, where tool marks and unfinished blocks confirm the theory. What's thrilling is how these tools preserve the site even as they expose it. Ground-penetrating radar can detect artifacts beneath floors without excavation. Hyperspectral imaging identifies faded pigments on stone surfaces, hinting at ancient artwork now invisible to human eyes. And quantum sensors so sensitive they detect minute gravity shifts may soon map underground voids in unprecedented detail. Each scan feels like decoding a message left by the builders themselves, one that says, "Look closer." We left more than stone, yet for all this innovation, the labyrinth still guards its deepest truths. Technology can show us the what, but the why remains elusive. Those perfect alignments, those resonant chambers, were they practical, spiritual, or something we haven't yet imagined? Every new scan seems to multiply the questions, proving that even our most advanced tools are just beginning to scratch the surface of this ancient enigma. And perhaps that's the point. Some puzzles aren't meant to be solved quickly, but savored slowly, layer by layer, like the labyrinth's own winding passages. Among the labyrinth's many puzzles, none unsettle researchers quite like the chambers that defy the laws of physics as we know them. Walk into one of these anomalous spaces with a compass, and the needle spins wildly as if gripped by invisible hands. Thermal cameras reveal patches of wall radiating heat in perfect geometric patterns: squares, circles, triangles, with no apparent source. Even more baffling are the cold spots, where temperatures plummet suddenly, creating condensation on stone that's been dry for centuries. These aren't random quirks of nature. They're consistent, measurable, and clustered in specific areas, almost as if the builders engineered them into the design. Take Chamber 27, a modest oval room deep in the labyrinth's eastern sector. On the surface, it looks identical to dozens of others: smooth walls, high ceiling, unremarkable carvings. But instruments tell a different story. The floor emits a magnetic field 30 times stronger than the surrounding bedrock, yet scans show no metal deposits or unusual minerals. When researchers placed iron shavings on the ground, they arranged themselves into intricate fractal patterns, as if guided by some unseen force. Local guides refused to enter this space, citing legends of the stone that dreams, a phrase that once seemed poetic until sleep studies revealed bizarre effects. Volunteers who spent the night there reported unusually vivid dreams, many featuring identical symbols later found etched in nearby tunnels. Coincidence? Or something more? Then there's the thermal enigma of the warm steps. In a descending corridor near the labyrinth's heart, every seventh stone radiates heat precisely matching human body temperature, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, regardless of the surrounding climate. The effect isn't residual heat from visitors. These stones stay warm even in untouched sections. Infrared imaging shows the heat originates from within the stone itself, pulsing faintly in cycles that mirror a resting heartbeat. Geologists are stumped. The granite here contains no radioactive elements, no hidden geothermal vents, just silent, inexplicable warmth where none should exist. The most debated anomaly lies in the so-called silent chamber. This perfectly circular room absorbs sound so completely that after 3 seconds, even a shout vanishes into utter stillness. But here's the twist. Specialized microphones detected subsonic vibrations, frequencies too low for human ears, pulsing through the walls at exact 90-minute intervals. Stranger still, these vibrations align with magnetic fluctuations in the chamber, creating a feedback loop that temporarily disrupts electronic devices. Ancient astronaut theorists pounce on such details, but mainstream scientists propose a more grounded, yet no less astonishing explanation. The builders might have discovered natural piezoelectric properties in certain stones, harnessing Earth's energy to create effects that feel supernatural. What chills researchers most isn't the anomalies themselves, but their distribution. These phenomena aren't random accidents. They cluster along the labyrinth's celestial alignments, appearing most strongly in chambers linked to solstices or lunar cycles. That suggests intentional design, a marriage of geology and astronomy we're only beginning to comprehend. Modern attempts to replicate these effects fall short. Lab-grown stone with matching mineral compositions lacks the same properties. Even AI models trained on global geological data can't pinpoint another natural site with such concentrated anomalies. The unsettling truth: we're not just looking at advanced engineering. We might be facing a forgotten branch of science, one that didn't separate physics from spirituality, that saw no distinction between Earth's magnetism and human consciousness. The labyrinth's builders didn't just shape stone. They may have learned to converse with the forces that shape reality itself, and until we decipher that language, their greatest secrets will hum quietly in the dark, waiting for ears that understand. The idea that the labyrinth could harness unseen energies sounds like something ripped from science fiction, until you stand in certain chambers and feel the air hum with something you can't explain. Proponents of Earth energy theories point to the labyrinth's strategic placement atop intersecting geological fault lines, where natural electromagnetic activity pulses stronger than anywhere else in the region. Instruments brought into these spaces detect erratic fluctuations, sudden spikes in magnetic fields, pockets of ionized air, even faint electrical currents running through walls that shouldn't conduct electricity. Skeptics dismiss it as geological coincidence, but the patterns are hard to ignore. The most active anomalies cluster in chambers aligned with solstices or lunar cycles, suggesting the builders didn't just notice these forces, they designed around them. Then there are the controversial resonance chambers. These perfectly proportioned rooms amplify specific sound frequencies to an unsettling degree. When researchers played tones matching the natural vibration of the local bedrock, something extraordinary happened. The walls themselves began to resonate, emitting secondary frequencies that interacted with the initial sound waves. In one experiment, these combined vibrations triggered a cascading effect, causing mineral deposits in the ceiling to emit brief flashes of light, a phenomenon known as triboluminescence. Indigenous oral histories describe rituals where chanting priests made the stones speak, producing light without fire. Could this be the forgotten science behind those legends? The most compelling evidence might lie in the labyrinth's mineral composition. X-ray diffraction reveals traces of rare piezoelectric crystals embedded in key walls, materials like quartz and tourmaline that generate electrical charge under mechanical stress. In modern times, we use these same minerals in watches, microphones, and even space shuttle sensors. But here's the twist: these crystals aren't naturally occurring in the local bedrock. They were deliberately imported and embedded, often at points where tunnel intersections create harmonic vibrations. The implication: the builders didn't just stumble upon these properties, they engineered them into the structure. Mainstream archaeology balks at calling this ancient technology, but the parallels to modern energy research are eerie. Take the work of Nikola Tesla, who experimented with resonant frequencies to transmit electricity wirelessly. Or contemporary studies on piezoelectric roads that harvest energy from passing traffic vibrations. The labyrinth's design hints at a similar understanding, that energy isn't just something you burn or carry, but something you can coax from the environment itself. Maybe the builders weren't wizards. Maybe they were physicists who saw the Earth as a living battery, its pulse thrumming through stone and air. Of course, the biggest hurdle is proof. Without blueprints or records, we're left interpreting effects without knowing intent. Did they use these energies to power tools, to communicate, to heal? The labyrinth keeps those secrets close, but one thing's certain: in a world where we're just beginning to harness vibrations, magnetic fields, and crystal energy, dismissing ancient knowledge as superstition might be the most unscientific leap of all. After all, the line between magic and science has always been a matter of perspective, and the deeper we dig into this labyrinth, the thinner that line becomes. The labyrinth's genius isn't locked in the past, it's reshaping the future of how we build. Modern architects and engineers now pore over scans of its tunnels, not as relics, but as blueprints for innovation. Take earthquake-resistant design, where today's cutting-edge, base isolation systems structures that float on bearings during tremors mirror the labyrinth's flexible stone joints. When engineers tested scale models of its corbelled ceilings in seismic simulators, they withstood shocks that flattened conventional designs. The secret: those ancient builders understood something we're only now rediscovering. Rigidity kills, but flexibility preserves. Sustainability experts are equally captivated. The labyrinth's passive climate control, its self-regulating temperature and humidity, has inspired a wave of biomorphic buildings. A new museum in Norway channels the labyrinth's ventilation techniques, using concealed air channels and thermal mass to slash energy use by 70%. Meanwhile, hydro engineers study its water management systems, adapting those precision carved channels for modern stormwater solutions in flood-prone cities. The lesson: ancient builders worked with nature, not against it, a philosophy that's revolutionizing green architecture. Then there's the acoustic revolution. Concert halls from Berlin to Tokyo now incorporate the labyrinth sound principles, with walls angled to amplify specific frequencies. One avant-garde theater in Chile even replicates the whispering gallery effect, where voices travel eerily along curved stone, just like in the labyrinth's most mysterious chambers. Material scientists take it further, experimenting with piezoelectric minerals similar to those found in the walls, creating surfaces that harvest energy from vibrations. But perhaps the most profound impact is philosophical. In an age of disposable construction, the labyrinth stands as a rebuke, a proof that buildings can outlast civilizations if crafted with care. Its builders thought in centuries, not quarterly profits. That's why universities now teach it alongside modern marvels, not as a historical footnote, but as a masterclass in longevity. Every time an architect chooses enduring stone over flimsy composites, or prioritizes harmony with the landscape over brute force engineering, the labyrinth's legacy grows. The greatest tribute isn't imitation, but evolution. A skyscraper in Singapore uses the labyrinth's solar alignment principles to track sunlight with moving shades, while a Swiss bunker borrows its hidden ventilation to survive millennia. These aren't copies, they're conversations across time, where ancient wisdom meets modern genius, and that's the real magic. The labyrinth wasn't just built to endure. It was built to teach, and now finally we're ready to learn. For the indigenous communities living in the labyrinth's shadow, these tunnels aren't abandoned relics, they're the breath of their ancestors, still whispering through the stone. Elders speak of a time when the underground chambers pulsed with ceremony, where every echo carried prayers and every solstice alignment marked a covenant between earth and sky. Unlike archaeologists who study the labyrinth as a puzzle to solve, these communities understand it as a living entity, woven into their oral histories long before outsiders ever laid eyes on its walls. Their stories describe it not as a construction, but as a revelation, a sacred space revealed to chosen ones in visions, then shaped by human hands in collaboration with the land itself. One particularly poignant tradition tells of the stone speakers, a lineage of spiritual leaders who could interpret the labyrinth's hidden language. During rituals held in specific chambers, they would press their ears to the walls, listening for vibrations said to carry messages from the past. Modern acoustics research lends eerie credibility to this practice. Certain tunnels do transmit sound over improbable distances, with frequencies that align with human brainwave patterns during meditative states. To the locals, this isn't coincidence. It's proof the builders intentionally crafted the labyrinth as a bridge between worlds. The labyrinth's celestial alignments also feature prominently in indigenous cosmology. While Western researchers marvel at the precision of solstice markers, tribal calendars still use these light events to dictate planting cycles and ceremonial dates. A shaman from the nearby Ashaninka people demonstrated how the winter solstice beam strikes a carved spiral at exactly the moment their oral histories say the veil between realms grows thin. They've preserved this knowledge through song for generations, long after the original purpose of the alignment was forgotten by outsiders. But the relationship isn't just spiritual, it's practical. Before modern mapping technology, the labyrinth served as a refuge during conflicts. Elders recount how their grandparents hid entire families in its depths during colonial invasions, relying on ancestral knowledge of secret passages now buried under collapses. Some tunnels still hold caches of ancient seeds and medicinal herbs, preserved in the labyrinth's stable microclimate as a living library of traditional knowledge. This cultural continuity faces urgent threats. As tourism grows, so does the disconnect between the labyrinth's scientific study and its sacred role. Researchers once dismissed indigenous accounts as myth, only to later confirm their accuracy, like the legend of singing stones that led to the discovery of piezoelectric minerals in the walls. Now, conservation efforts increasingly blend Western archaeology with tribal stewardship, training young community members as guides who can share both the technical and spiritual dimensions of the site. The most profound lesson may lie in how these communities view preservation. Where scientists see fragile stone needing protection from humans, the indigenous perspective flips the script. They believe the labyrinth protects us, safeguarding wisdom we're not yet ready to understand. Their stories warn that certain chambers remain sealed not by accident, but by design, to be opened only when humanity reaches the right level of awareness. It's a humbling reminder that some mysteries aren't meant to be rushed. After all, the labyrinth has waited thousands of years. It can wait a little longer for us to listen properly. The next wave of explorers is preparing to descend into the labyrinth's uncharted depths, armed with tools that would seem like magic to the original builders. This isn't the era of machetes and hand-drawn maps. Today's teams carry backpack-sized LiDAR units that paint entire chambers in 3D within minutes, drones equipped with thermal cameras to sniff out hidden passages, and even AI-powered ground-penetrating radar that can see through solid stone. Their mission: to peel back layers of the labyrinth that have resisted scrutiny for millennia, including a sealed corridor that, according to scans, slopes downward for over half a mile before terminating in what might be a vast circular chamber. Early seismic readings suggest the space contains anomalous metallic deposits, something unheard of in the local geology. But technology alone won't unlock the labyrinth's secrets. A groundbreaking collaboration between archaeologists and indigenous knowledge keepers is reshaping the approach. For the first time, tribal elders are working side by side with scientists, cross-referencing scan data with oral histories that describe chambers modern instruments haven't yet detected. One elder recently guided researchers to a seemingly blank wall, insisting it concealed an entrance mentioned in ancestral songs. Millimeter-wave radar later confirmed a narrow passage behind the stone, its entrance deliberately plugged with blocks that match the surrounding wall seamlessly. Such partnerships are proving that the labyrinth's blueprint might have been preserved not in stone, but in stories passed down through generations. The most ambitious project involves acoustic archaeology, where teams will map the labyrinth's sonic fingerprints like never before. Using arrays of ultra-sensitive microphones, they'll chart how sound propagates through the tunnels, identifying resonance patterns that could reveal hidden chambers or even coded messages in the stonework. Early tests in known areas have already uncovered something extraordinary. Certain frequencies cause specific carvings to vibrate disproportionately, as if the symbols themselves are tuned to particular notes. Researchers speculate this might be a form of architectural music, where the labyrinth's layout functions as a giant instrument, one we're only beginning to learn how to play. Yet the greatest discoveries may come from what the labyrinth withholds. Recent attempts to date the site using cutting-edge uranium-thorium methods have hit a wall, literally. Samples from the deepest chambers return inconsistent ages, with some sections appearing millennia older than others, as if the labyrinth was built in discontinuous bursts across vast stretches of time. Even more perplexing are the dead zones where advanced sensors simply fail, their readings scrambled by unexplained electromagnetic interference. Some physicists theorize the builders might have utilized local mineral formations to create natural Faraday cages, shielding certain areas from prying eyes, an ancient form of information security. What keeps drawing explorers back isn't just the promise of answers, but the labyrinth's uncanny way of redefining the questions. Every technological leap seems to reveal another layer of complexity, another whisper of ingenuity that nudges us closer to the edge of understanding, only to retreat again into shadow. The teams preparing their gear right now aren't just uncovering history. They're stepping into a conversation that began thousands of years ago, one where each new discovery feels less like an endpoint and more like the next syllable in a sentence we're still learning to speak. From blockbuster documentaries to best-selling novels, the Labyrinth has seeped into modern culture like water through its ancient stone channels. Just last year, a streaming series devoted an entire season to unraveling its mysteries, blending cutting-edge scans with dramatic reenactments of what construction might have looked like thousands of years ago. Video game designers have meticulously recreated its tunnels in virtual worlds, letting players explore chambers too fragile for real-life access. Even fashion runways have echoed its spiral motifs in shimmering fabric. But why does this underground maze grip our collective imagination so fiercely? Perhaps because it represents the ultimate puzzle, one crafted not just to confuse but to communicate across centuries. The Labyrinth taps into something primal in us, the thrill of the unsolved. Unlike straightforward ruins where archaeologists can point and say, "This was a temple," or "This was a home," its purpose remains deliciously ambiguous. That uncertainty becomes a blank canvas for our curiosity. Conspiracy theorists see evidence of lost technologies, while spiritual seekers interpret it as a metaphysical blueprint. Academics debate its engineering, and artists are inspired by its eerie beauty. This multiplicity of meanings keeps the Labyrinth fresh in ways more defined historical sites can't match. A pyramid is a tomb, a colosseum is an arena, but the Labyrinth, it could be anything, and that could is catnip to storytellers. Consider how differently media portrays it. One documentary frames it as an ancient supercomputer, its alignments functioning like a Stone Age astronomical calculator. A popular video game casts it as a testing ground for alien intelligences, filled with lethal traps and holographic riddles. Meanwhile, a Pulitzer-nominated novel imagines it as a living entity that subtly manipulates visitors' perceptions. These wildly divergent interpretations share one thread. They all treat the Labyrinth not as a static artifact, but as an active participant in the narrative. It doesn't just exist, it does something, and that agency, whether scientific, supernatural, or symbolic, makes it irresistible fodder for creative reimagining. The Labyrinth also thrives in media because it mirrors modern anxieties. In an era of fragmented truths and digital labyrinths of misinformation, an actual underground puzzle from antiquity feels weirdly relevant. Podcasts dissecting its mysteries often draw parallels to today's information age. How do we navigate complexity? What knowledge have we lost? Even the way its tunnels distort sound finds eerie resonance in our era of echo chambers and algorithmic bubbles. The Labyrinth becomes a metaphor we can walk through, quite literally in VR experiences, making abstract fears tangible. Yet for all the fantastical depictions, the most enduring portrayals honor one simple fact: the Labyrinth's true power lies in what we don't know. The recent surge in ambient archaeology videos, where creators simply film its silent passages without narration or music, rack up millions of views. There's a hunger to experience the mystery raw without solutions, because once every question is answered, the magic fades. The Labyrinth endures in our culture not despite its secrets, but because of them. It's the ultimate reminder that some wonders grow more compelling the longer they resist explanation. The underground labyrinth of South America stands as a silent challenge across the centuries, not just a marvel of engineering, but a deliberate puzzle left by its creators. Every smoothed wall, every precisely aligned corridor whispers the same tantalizing question: how much have we really advanced? For all our satellites and supercomputers, we're still piecing together the ingenuity of people who carved perfection from bedrock with tools we can barely comprehend. Yet each fragment of understanding reshapes history. The labyrinth doesn't just defy expectations, it redefines them, forcing us to reconsider the timeline of human innovation. What's striking isn't just the scale of the mystery, but how it refuses to fit neatly into any narrative. Archaeologists expected a tomb, or a temple, or a fortress. Instead, they found something fluid, a space that seems to morph in purpose depending on which chamber you stand in. One moment, it's an astronomical observatory tracking celestial cycles with uncanny precision. The next, it's an acoustic theater where sound bends to unseen laws. Then, without warning, it becomes a sanctuary, its walls radiating warmth in defiance of physics. This isn't a single answer waiting to be uncovered. It's 100 answers layered like the rock itself. The true legacy of the labyrinth might lie not in the past, but in the future it's shaping. Engineers studying its seismic resilience are redesigning earthquake-proof cities. Architects borrowing its passive cooling systems are slashing energy use in modern buildings. Even musicians draw inspiration from its harmonic chambers, replicating its eerie acoustics in concert halls. The builders couldn't have imagined smartphones or space travel, yet their work speaks directly to challenges we're grappling with today. There's humility in that realization that ancient minds might hold keys to problems we consider uniquely modern. Of course, the labyrinth guards its core secrets as fiercely as ever. Why align tunnels with stars visible only every 52 years? Why encode vibrations into stone? Why hide such brilliance underground? Some theories paint it as a vault for sacred knowledge, a literal underground library meant to preserve truths through catastrophes. Others see it as a rite of passage where only those who deciphered its geometry could access deeper wisdom. A handful of researchers even propose it was never meant to be solved, that its purpose was simply to remind future generations how much they don't know. One thing's certain, the labyrinth isn't done with us. Every time we think we've mapped its limits, a new tunnel appears. Every tool we invent to study it reveals another layer of complexity. It's as if the builders anticipated our curiosity, leaving just enough clues to keep us hungry. So tell us, what's your take? A forgotten technology, a cosmic calendar. A message we're not yet equipped to understand. Drop your wildest theories in the comments, and for more journeys into the unexplained, hit subscribe. The next revelation is always just around the corner, or in this case, maybe beneath your